Live from the station taking action for you, this is ABC Action News.
Good evening and welcome to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Irma. I'm Jamison Euler.
And I'm Wendy Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us. Some people around Polk County are still looking for a place to stay tonight as they prepare for this monster storm.
ABC Action News reporter Brenda Gonzalez is live at Chain of Lakes Elementary School in Lake Wales, where people continue to arrive after their nearest shelter already hit capacity. Brenda Lees.
Jamison, this shelter, it's actually in Winter Haven. There are 500 people right now inside. This is one of two shelters that are pet-friendly shelters. A lot of people headed this way because of that reason. Now, in total, 20 shelters around Polk County. 2 right now are at capacity. One in Lakeland for special needs. Another is in Lake Wales. So people are now diverting to this shelter and other shelters around the county right now. Caitlin Sandy came here so she could bring her service dog. She's boarded up her home now. Like everyone here, all she can do is wait. Irma has really changed her perspective on things.
It changes everything, everything that I thought was important. Sitting here trying to get to the shelter, I'm going through all my stuff, and I'm thinking, forget about all of it. Just as long as we get here, as long as I get my dog here and I get him here and everybody's here and we're safe. Yeah. That's what matters.
And I'm told that in total, all of these shelters they have capacity to hold tens of thousands of people around Polk County. Anyone is welcome here, especially those in the mandatory evacuation areas. Those are people living in mobile home parks as well as flood-prone areas around the county. They're told to come to any of these shelters right now. And as we're just standing here, we keep seeing more and more people coming in. Reporting live in Polk County, Brenda Gonzalez, ABC Action News.
Brenda Lees, thank you. And as that woman just said, it's so important that as long as we have our lives, that's all we care about. The material stuff we can rebuild. My husband and I have been texting all night saying the same thing. You know what? We can rebuild. But as long as our family is safe, as long as our animals are safe, that's all that matters.
It is. ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska has been south of us all night long. He's in Port Charlotte for us tonight.
Yeah, and we're hearing, like many other places, it's a ghost town right now. Michael, you're under a curfew. Is that correct?
Jamison, Wendy, yeah, that is correct. The Charlotte County Sheriff's Office putting the curfew in effect from 9 p.m. tonight to 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, probably because we're going to start getting the tropical force winds right around 2 a.m., and then it's going to crank up pretty fast after that. We'll start to get those hurricane force winds here just based on the models that we're seeing right now. I mean, we're in just a parking lot where it has just now started to rain here in Port Charlotte. The trees are moving back and forth a little bit just with some good gusts. We really haven't started to see those intense bands come in here, but we're expecting that probably within the next 2 hours or so. And everybody tonight, from Brenda Lee's story to you guys talking, it really wraps it up around the fact of shelter and safety. I saw people tonight that were so relieved that they finally found shelter that they didn't even really think about the fact that this hurricane was heading their way. So it's pretty amazing, and it really throws your world into a tizzy when you don't have a safe place to stay. So definitely a lot of people tonight hopefully got to where they were going. We saw so many people looking for gas throughout the entire day, so many people doing last-minute prep supplies, and a lot of people just trying to figure out whether or not they should go back to the West Coast or stay on the East Coast if the track was going to shift. So it's been a really, really busy day for a lot of folks, and hopefully they're home safe tonight, and we're going to hunker down for this storm, and then once it starts cranking up, we're going to get back on TV and start showing our viewers what they can expect in Tampa. We're live here in Port Charlotte. Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
All right, Michael, stay safe out there. We want to go to Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips for the latest track on Hurricane Irma that just came in. Dennis?
It did, Wendy, and it's all about this. I mean, obviously, this is the thing that we continue to talk to, and a lot of things have changed in the last 6 hours. First of all, the track has been nudged a little bit to the west. The Hurricane Center says, indeed, that the fact that it has moved a little bit more west than anticipated, they've had to adjust this. So what this means is the center of this pretty much stays just offshore or very, very close to the Pinellas County coastline. Now, as ominous as that sounds, it's really not. In a sense, it may even be a little bit of a good thing because they're also saying it makes it much more difficult to pinpoint the angle in which this comes in, which is what we've been saying now for the last day or two. So coming in at such a sharp angle, all it takes, and again, folks, we're talking about maybe 30, 40 miles difference. If we could get this 30, 40 miles offshore, at least in terms of the Bay Area's impact, it would be significantly less. Now you say, well, hurricane force winds extend 70. It does, you're right. But the intense winds, what I would probably call the devastating winds in terms of damage, more than likely only extends about 20 miles out. So obviously, if we can keep the center of this storm out a little bit, and we've still got, what, 30 hours, maybe even more than that, before we're actually talking that potential of a landfall. Well, I mean, this is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. It's trying to clip Pinellas County right there. I would say that's about equidistant, so maybe about 2 in the morning, Monday morning. So that's, well, 27 hours, 28 hours, 27 hours. So if that continues that track just a little bit more, we've got some potential to keep the bulk of the severe winds just offshore. Now, the bad news is it's still a very big storm, right? There's no question about it. It's a big storm, so everybody is going to be impacted, whether it's tropical storm force winds on the East Coast or whether it's hurricane force winds in our neck of the woods. We're not going to escape that. But the other good thing, we're not seeing a 4 there anymore. We were. So at least in terms of Sunday night through Monday morning, again, we're looking for things to hold on to. Nobody has to tell anybody how horrific this is going to be if a 4 or a 5 goes directly into the Bay Area. Everybody knows that. So what we're looking at now are some of the little things that say, you know what, maybe this is headed in the right direction for us. We still completely have to be totally prepared and ready to roll. And by the way, a couple of folks on Facebook actually said after watching us in the last hour, they've decided to go ahead and evacuate and go to safety. That is what we're wanting to hear. If you live in an area where you are prone to flooding, if you live in an area that you just don't feel safe, that your home might be older, you haven't shuttered up, you don't have plywood or any of the above, and you still feel as though that you want to go elsewhere, you still have time. That time will be over by tomorrow morning. But I'm telling you, my family drove out at about 2 o'clock this morning when I saw the latest Euro last night. And when they did, they drove north, did not have a soul on the road for a lot of the time early on. And even though the traffic picked up a bit, it was never bumper to bumper, and they always found gas. So the reason I'm telling you this of all times is if you still decide you want to get to a shelter or you even want to try to get out, you still have the time. Now, that being said, there's what we're talking about, the 3 down to maybe a 2 for our area, if you kind of do the math, right? Maybe, and then down to a 1. So at least this advisory gives us something to try to hope for tomorrow. We'll be here all night. Greg and Jason will be in, Shay and I. So obviously, nothing's going to change. We'll be updating on Facebook. But at least it's something, right? And it's interesting because when we're looking at this storm, truthfully, it looked pretty powerful. I thought it looked like it was intensifying. And recon did not find stronger winds. In fact, the pressure actually went up a little bit. Now, it's also possible that they didn't sample the right part of the storm, because that's all it is. They have to go into an area and sample that, and when they find an area, sometimes it's very small, and they miss it. So it's potentially could be stronger than this, but hey, we'll take what we can get right now. But the big thing that you'll see right there, it is now moving northwest. So it has made the turn. And because now it has gone a decent amount west before making that turn, it's got to be a very close call, a very tricky angle in which this is coming in from the southeast, and as it scoots by or goes inland right along the coast. It's literally as close as it possibly can be. So we'll be watching it all night. The New European comes in around 2 o'clock. As always, I'll be posting it on Facebook. And then we'll see tomorrow morning if the track does give us an opportunity to say maybe the worst of it is going to be offshore. Folks, we're not getting off easy on this. There's hurricane warnings everywhere. We are going to have hurricane conditions. There's no magic bullet. There's not going to be something that all of a sudden we're going to say, oh, you know, nothing to worry about. We're going to get out of it. That will not happen. But what could happen is the worst of it could just stay offshore. And I think as compared to what we're talking about and still talking about as a possibility, at least it's something, again, to hold on to. So we'll continue to watch all of these variables. I want to go, tell you what, guys, I want to go back and crunch some of the numbers that just came in, and I'll have an update coming up again in a couple of minutes, all right?
All right. We'll check back with you. Dennis, and I also want to mention, I'm just getting word from one of our producers, Chris May, who just got word from Hillsborough County. They're saying 17,000 people have already taken refuge inside shelters in Hillsborough County. Great news, because as we know, so many people were wavering whether or not to go to a shelter, you know, or stay in put. So it's really nice to know 17,000 already in shelters and protected, which is really good news. Thank you for heeding those warnings out there.
And in Pinellas County, we had numbers that were about 16,000 were in shelters, with still another 24,000 spaces to go over in Pinellas County. So folks are going to shelters. A lot of times folks wonder, well, who goes to shelters? Why, you could just leave or just hunker down. I'm telling you, everybody's taking advantage of these shelters because they understand the severity of the storm.
And like Dennis said, either get in your car and go north or go to a shelter if you don't feel safe, but don't stay put. You know,
you're going to have some company there. I mean, that's it. Some of those shelters are at capacity as well, but a lot of them still wide open, folks. So take advantage of them if you need them.
Absolutely. Well, while the storm is still hundreds of miles away, people in the Bay Area are heeding the warning right now.
Yeah, Lauren St. Germain is near Anna Maria Island in Manatee County with the latest on the conditions there. Lauren?
Yeah, and guys, you were mentioning about Pinellas and Hillsborough. In Manatee County, the numbers are very, very similar. There's still about 5,000 spots, but close to the same number in the shelters. Now, I want to show you what we're seeing. We're on Cortez Boulevard. This is the Anna Maria Oyster Bar. We see a lot of plywood right here covering up everything, and then sandbags. It is an eerie sight out here. This strip mall is completely boarded up, and as we were driving along Cortez Boulevard to try to get to the islands. Obviously, we weren't going to get on, but our entire drive, I think I saw 5 cars, and obviously no one out. Everything was boarded up. People are really heeding the warnings, taking this seriously. And as a reminder, if you are watching on Anna Maria, it's important to know that they were shutting off all that drinking water starting at 10:30. So that time has come and gone for you guys. You cannot get on the island, but you can still get off the island if you want to get to one of those shelters where there are still 5,000 spots available. In Manatee County, they're allowing all pets. So you can bring your pets, you can bring your kids, your grandma, your grandpa, your aunt. Everyone can go to those shelters still. And again, guys, this is what we're seeing in Manatee County and Bradenton as we're preparing for whatever Irma is going to bring our way. For now, reporting live in Manatee County, Lauren St. Germain, ABC Action News.
Lauren, thank you. The usually busy Ybor City quiet on this Saturday night.
So many places a ghost town right now. As reporter Chris Stewart showing us the fun some are still trying to have down there before Hurricane Irma arrives. Take a look.
Ybor City is one of the hot nightlife spots here in Tampa, and typically on a Saturday night it's packed on these streets, but with this hurricane coming, it's a different story. A lot of businesses are boarded up, but not this pub. Here, there's a little bit of fun the night before Irma. We boarded up our house, got everything prepared, tied down all the lawn furniture and everything, got the provisions and things that we needed. But tonight, we're going to have a little bit of fun. There was a bunch of bands that were going to play tonight, of course got canceled because of the storm. Kind of turned that into an acoustic show, and I'm just having a good time running town for them tonight.
Show goes on?
Show's going on, yeah. Well, after the bands wrap it up tonight, they're going to be closing down this pub. All the businesses really going to be closed in this neighborhood. This is a spot today for a lot of people who were evacuating from this storm. People thought that they would be coming here for it to be their safe space, but instead they're preparing to be in the path of this storm. But tonight they're just trying to enjoy themselves before what could be a very stressful time starting tomorrow. In Tampa, Chris Stewart.
All right, thank you, Chris. Lost him at the end there, but it's nice to see that folks are out enjoying themselves for at least a few more minutes until they have to hunker down.
Could be the last night for a little while. Some real-time videos from Hurricane Irma's approach popping up on social media tonight.
That's right. ABC Action News anchor Laura Harris monitoring the feed for us at the digital dashboard. So, Laura, what are you seeing?
Some very impressive pictures and videos that we're getting in. Some of these, I wonder if people were being a little bit dangerous with their lives, but I want to show you this one. This is in Fort Lauderdale, and you can see this water spout that is formed right there in the middle. It's a ghost town. There's no one else there but this guy in his car taking this video. I also want to show you this one. Hopefully we'll be able to bring it up. Stand by. this one right here. Look at these pictures that we're getting in. This is off the Florida Keys. You can see how basically this is someone's home on this side. This is their boat dock here. And look at this water that has come up all the way over and rocking all of this. You can see this flag, how it's blowing that way. We're seeing pictures like that all over social media right now. And then I want to show you this one. This is another example of heartbreaking video and why we tell you we've heard people tying their pets to trees, tying their pets to fences, just leaving their pets behind. Well, check this out. This is happening. You see this dog. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a Broward County Sheriff's deputy who's swimming behind this dog trying to save him in those flood waters. And that's just some of the heartbreaking video. Thankfully, they were able to save that dog in distress. You can see some trees down in that area, but I'll continue to monitor all of these. Again, you still see this storm that's so far away from Florida, and it's already doing this kind of damage in some places and just giving us these really impressive pictures, Wendy.
All right. Thank you, Laura. You know, and it's just heartbreaking to see that animal picture because I can't imagine leaving my dog. And I know a lot of animal lovers out there. You would never leave your animal behind. And it just breaks my heart to see that.
Well, I know a lot of people didn't leave and go to shelters in Houston.
Right.
When Harvey came because they said they had their pets and they didn't want to leave their pets behind. So happens.
All right. So you're looking at a full screen here of a lot of numbers, and I'll tell you why. It's a reminder of if the power goes out and you cannot get our ABC Action News app, and you can't get on your computer, you can listen to ABC Action News updates on our radio partners, and they include, you see them there, 99.5 WQYK, Q105, Wild 94.1, B98.7, and 92.5 Maxima. They will simulcast our news as the storm gets closer. And we also want to let you know we're going to be with you every step of the way to get you through Hurricane Irma. We've got continuing coverage not only on air, but also on Roku, Apple TV, our Facebook page, Twitter, and of course on our website, abcactionnews.com.
Yeah, a lot of stories coming out of this storm. A Pinellas County resident who was trying to do the right thing by evacuating says she found herself in a scary situation.
Yeah, as ABC Action News reporter Adam Walser talked to her earlier tonight about her failed effort to get out of town. Adam, what happened?
Well, Wendy, Jenny Reisner and her brother live in Gulfport, which is under a mandatory evacuation. They filled up their tank and left yesterday to try to get to Georgia, and they ran into this. Just a few hours down the road, they got stuck in gridlock, and they couldn't go anywhere. They were among millions of Floridians who evacuated, but they say that even though there was plenty of gas when they started in Pinellas County, it was none available when they got near Inverness. They say they stopped at one station that had gas, watched people in front of them fill their cars, then multiple containers, only to see the pumps run out just before their turn. The gas station owner then told her it would be Saturday before they got another shipment, so they decided to turn around. Reisner says the state should have done more to supply gas stations along that route.
Our plans were to keep on going, but we knew we would have had to gotten gas somewhere, especially because the traffic literally wasn't moving. It was a dead standstill on 41, on 75, and on 19. So we had to try to make the decision of, do we run out of gas on the highway in a strange place with a little dog that's sick? I'm disabled and can't drive. My brother's doing all the driving. And I'm like, well, we try to be responsible, so we felt we could not go any further than what we knew we could get gas for.
Reisner got a room for tonight in Pinellas County, but will have to check out tomorrow because that hotel is sold out. She hopes one room will open up before Hurricane Irma arrives. And she also hopes the state will look into ways to get more gas to stations along evacuation routes in the future. Adam Walser, ABC Action News.
All right, Adam, thank you. And right now in Largo, crews are helping people evacuate throughout the night until it's no longer safe.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Sarah Hollenbeck now at the Emergency Operations Center in Largo with the very latest out there. Sarah, so how's it going?
You know, Adam talked about this need to try and find gas. Well, one good thing is that there are tons of shelters in Pinellas County. I want you to take a look at this huge list. Now, of this entire list, this is the one and only school that is at capacity, John Sexton Elementary School. So what that means is that there are tons of room for people out here. There's only 15,000 people in shelters, and that means that they have space for another 24,000 people. And they say, please take advantage of this. One of the other things that the sheriff told us he's really worried about is not having his deputies able to respond respond once the winds kick up to about 50 miles per hour. He said we won't be able to help people, so that's why it's so important to get into these shelters. Now, they also talked about just how huge this storm is, the magnitude of it. Very worrisome for all the deputies here in Pinellas County. Now, this is a staging area where we are right now. So we've got deputies that are actually ready to go and help people, to pick up anybody that needs help getting into a shelter. So that's something they're hoping to do as well. Reporting live in Largo, I'm Sarah Hollenbeck, ABC Action News.
Thank you, Sarah. And there are so many other folks trying to get out, evacuating right now. We want to go to Mercier. She's in Brooksville at the moment.
Well, we just lost her live shot, as a matter of fact, so we're going to go back to her probably in a little bit. We understand that she was at a shelter that was taking some pets in up there. A lot of folks had questions about whether or not they could bring their pets. So.
Right, and I think a lot of hotels we're hearing, too, that even if they say normally online they don't accept pets, they will not turn you away, especially in our dire need right now. So if you do need to evacuate, go. Don't wait because you have an animal. Don't keep that animal in harm's way along with yourselves. Yeah. Well, many people are settling into shelters for the night.
Let's go live now to ABC Action News reporter Eric Waxler at one of those shelters in Pasco County. Eric.
Yeah, we're live at River Ridge Middle School, and there are more than 1,000 people in this gymnasium right now. This is home for them for tonight, tomorrow night, and then we'll see. There's actually classrooms set up in another part of the school with another 1,000 people. So more than 2,000 people have found shelter here at River Ridge, and that includes a son and his mom who we found here. This is Sal.
How you doing?
So tell us about your experience getting your mom into the shelter. I'm sure she was your first priority.
Of course. She was my first priority, and it was Pasco was very nice. They picked us up in a bus because I have no car, and they took us here. The only thing is we didn't know we needed mattresses like this. So they put us in chairs, so she has to sleep in a chair, and she has to sleep in a chair. Natalie has to sleep in a chair all night. I'm not blaming anybody. You know, they've been great over here so far.
Well, our goal, we're going to put it out there. If anybody wants to bring an air mattress for Fran, and what's your name again?
Natalie.
And Natalie, come on down to River Ridge Middle School because you can't stay in a chair for very long. Fran, how are you doing? You're 94 years young, I hear.
Oh, don't tell everybody that.
You look beautiful. You look like you're ready for a night out.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Has this been a scary experience for you?
Very, very. I didn't know what to expect, and quite a surprise.
Yeah. How long do you think you'll have to be here?
Oh, God. I hope I can leave
tomorrow
morning. Is that a good idea?
Not tomorrow, no.
Oh, I can't stay another day.
Yeah.
Oh, well. It's very nice, though.
Yeah. And tell me about where you guys live and how concerned you are about your homes.
Well, I live in Newport Richey. She lives in Port Richey. Her friend is staying in the house, didn't want to come here. We don't know. Yeah. They say this and that. I'm not sure. But we came here just to be safe, to be on the safe side. Her friend didn't want to come, so he's going to stay home and ride it out.
Well, we wish you guys the best. We want to get an air mattress for these two right here because it's hard enough being in these shelters, but to have to sit like that. Some people came ready to go. Look at this mattress set up right here. That woman resting comfortably right now because it will be a long time here in this shelter as we all wait for the storm to come through. Live in Newport Richey, Eric Waxler, ABC Action News.
All right, Eric, thank you. We want to go to Chief Meteorologist Dennis Phillips. Dennis, I know you got the latest track at 11. You've crunched the numbers. Have things changed?
They kind of have. It's a very tricky forecast, clearly, and the Hurricane Center even admits that it's a tricky forecast. Now, they've made a couple of things in their discussion. They give it what's called an intergovernmental discussion, and they kind of give their reasons for why the track is what it is. And here is the track. And the one thing that you see immediately, or that I see, and I'm sure you do too, there's no 4 on there. Well, if that plays out that way, that is huge, because I'm telling you there is a much larger risk of structural damage to any homes with a 4 than there is a 3. As we've been saying for most of the night, a Cat 5 hurricane is 500 times more powerful in terms of damage than a 1. That's a pretty incredible number. and a 4, one level down. But when you start to get a 3, and even a low-end 3, it's 111 and above, 130 for a 4. So at the very least in the middle. And then you notice from there near Pinellas County, and then turning into a 1. And you also notice that it starts to pick up its forward speed. Well, the reason that it's going to pick up its forward speed is because it's going to start to be sheared. Now, that does 2 things. 1, obviously, it picks up the forward speed, and 2, it weakens hurricanes. So again, we've had a couple of things happen at 11 o'clock that at least gives us a little bit of hope that maybe the worst of the winds might not be quite as rough as the original forecast. Now, I have to stress one thing. These are the intensity forecast models. I get it. There is still a ton of warm water for this storm to have an opportunity to develop further. And I'm telling you, I would not be shocked at all if it goes through another intensification cycle. So I cannot write off that possibility, in spite of the fact that you're not seeing that from the Hurricane Center's track. And they're the experts. I'm absolutely all in on this with what they're saying. I just think there is areas down south of the Keys where this could develop further. But if this track is correct, tomorrow night, Category 3 hurricane, just off the coast. I mean, this is... Shay, did you actually look at the exact area here? I mean, it's hard to see with this map. This kind of looks to me like southern Sarasota County, you know, maybe in that general area. Kind of looks like it as a 3 with winds of 120 miles an hour. Now, we have to remember a couple of things. This is not a single point. A hurricane isn't a point on the line. It's a massive storm. This particular one is a massive storm. So because of that, it's going to easily cover the entire state in terms of hurricane force winds. They extend well over 70, 80 miles out to the east. Tropical storm force winds double that. However, the one thing to remember is as it starts to go up, it will begin to weaken, because it's being sheared. So maybe we get it down to 100 or 110 in our area, you know, maybe 95 or 100, and then all of a sudden we're at a Category 2 hurricane as opposed to a 3. You got that location? Venice.
In Sarasota.
Okay, all right, there you go. So it's saying that the Category 3 hurricane between Venice and Sarasota tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. I think that's a reasonable number. It may even be low in my opinion, but hopefully it's not. But after we go in there, then all of a sudden we start to see right over Pinellas County, or just off of Pinellas County, or pretty much right over Pinellas County. But as I said, if we continue to see a little bit more of a westward track, it can happen. And here's all you got to do is look at the margin of error. There is the perfect forecast from the Hurricane Center. That's what they call it. When you have that line directly match up with the track. But if you go the margin of error a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, if you go this way, all of a sudden we're out into the Gulf, maybe 50 or 60 miles, and then it's another story entirely. You get the bulk of the heavy winds offshore, and while we still have hurricane force winds, they will not be the kind that cause structural or even devastating damage. Now, that's best case scenario. Let's be honest about it. It is. But I don't think you guys need to hear the worst case scenario anymore. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of it. So I'd at least like to hear something a little bit more favorable that can happen, and it's within that margin of error from the Hurricane Center. All right, warnings we know remain in effect. They're not going anywhere. 933 millibars, a little bit weaker, but to me, as I said, it does concern me because this looks pretty healthy to me, and the recon will continue to fly right on through, and there's a ton of warm water before this reaches the Keys tomorrow morning, and then eventually goes up the west coast of Florida. A lot of folks have been asking, is there any chance this should just keep going west? There is not. That one we're sure of, because that same shear that inevitably is going to be there, it's the one that's going to cause it to turn, that maybe has caused it to turn, that we've been talking about for days. It can't miss this storm. It will turn it. It may be a little later, but it's going to turn it, and hopefully far enough offshore that it will limit the damage to us. Hurricane force winds, this is right now, okay? 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. Great graphic here. 5:30, half of these winds are offshore. The areas experiencing hurricane force winds, Sarasota, Manatee, Hardy, DeSoto, down through Charlotte and Lee County, okay? That's 5:30. Then we get into 9:30. This is when we continue to see, hopefully, a little bit of weakening or maybe pulling away, because all we're talking here is the difference from the coast to maybe central DeSoto County. If you could get, or Hardy County or DeSoto, if you could just find a way to move this over about 30 miles, this forecast changes dramatically. But here's what you can expect without any doubt. There will be hurricane force winds. There will be hurricane force gusts. And we're hoping that maybe we're on the low end of the scale as opposed to the upper end. And then by Monday morning, it starts to pull out of Citrus County, up toward the Panhandle, still as a minimal hurricane, and then out of the picture entirely. So certainly not ready to make any kind of changes in what we're expecting. We will have widespread power outages. I can say by tomorrow, maybe tomorrow morning, this red will all be over here. So expect to lose power tomorrow, starting probably later in the afternoon in our southern counties, southern Polk, Hardee, DeSoto, Highlands, and then eventually mid-evening, early to mid-evening, across the interior from Pinellas, Hillsborough, Polk, and then a little bit later in our northern counties. And I will say this again, and mainly because I know a lot of folks who I know, who I was up texting at about 2 o'clock this morning when I saw the new Euro that said we were going to have a close call, if not right on top of us. People got up. I texted Shay. I texted Wendy. I said, you know, you guys might want to bring your family now because this is turning into a coastal storm, and you might want to consider leaving them. Well, I'm putting them in a safe spot. Ultimately, a lot of folks who went found out the roads were not bad at all. So this is your final chance to either go to a shelter. You could leave right now, probably not run into a lot of traffic. Gas stations are open, and we were hearing all day long from people who made the trek up 75 that they didn't have any trouble finding gas. Now, maybe in Florida a little trickier, but once you get into Georgia, you fill up now, you can make it. I'm not encouraging you to do it. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying one last time, if you're on the fence and you're in a flood zone, or you're in an area where you're close enough where you maybe, where you live, whether it's a mobile home or a very old home or one you couldn't board up or one you don't have shutters, and you're looking at a possibility of 100-mile-an-hour winds, maybe, just maybe, this is the time, honey, let's get in the car and go. And just do it. And then you'll know you'll be safe. And that's just something to think about, because in the 30 years I've been doing this, I've never faced the realistic possibility of a storm this large and this strong hitting the Bay Area. We had Charlie, much smaller storm, much smaller storm. We had Wilma, bigger, but way down to the south. So you see now the probability of hurricane force winds. Interesting. One other thing now. This is news shade, too. And look at this. Remember in the last 3 hours we were showing you a map that had purple on this? Well, there's no purple on there anymore. Remember, 100% likelihood of hurricane force winds were on this map for the 5 o'clock advisory. All right? Well, now it's down to 90%. So at least we're trending in the right direction. Now, tomorrow morning, Greg will be in, Jason will be in. Certainly possible we could be looking at a storm that's getting stronger again. As I was saying, it scares me how good it looks and how much warm water's down there. But the Hurricane Center right now is saying, hey, so far, we think it may be weakening just a little bit, and it may be moving a little bit west. That's a good combination, I'll tell you that. There's your upcoming storm surge. Will be a big issue regardless. It's a big, big storm. So even if it goes offshore as much as I'm saying, and again, I'm not saying it will, I'm saying if that were to happen, you're still going to get a surge. Not as big a one, but this is a large storm, not in terms of strength, which it is that too, but in terms of sheer size. It's going to push a lot of water into our general area. Now, the surge will be highest probably down south around Fort Myers and into the Punta Gorda area. And you see the probability is extremely high. That's where the red colors are. So we're going to be looking at surge. It also corresponds with high tide, which I think, you know, will be a bigger issue in most of the Tampa Bay region, from the Bay right on up toward the Gulf, you know, from Pinellas and Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus. And that's why there's warnings, storm surge warnings in effect for the entire area. And that's because the tides added to the list of things that are going against us this time. The particular tide, these times, are one of the highest of the month. So unfortunately, the exact time the water comes around, the winds come around and come back in, we're also dealing already with close to a foot to a foot and a half of more water than we would normally have anyway at any given state. So you throw all that together, it's just not a good situation. But again, at least there's something to hold on to, right? Maybe when you go to bed tonight, you have thinking, well, maybe, let's get up in the morning and see what happens. And we've seen stranger things, Charlie, and a lot less time, 6 hours. These are the latest numbers. They're still looking every bit as strong. Now, these won't change anyway. These aren't based on the Hurricane Center's estimation. This is actually the European model based on that. And that updates about 2 a.m. The GFS goes in about an hour, the Euro at about 2:30. And, of course, I'll be updating that as well. So these numbers you've seen before, 105, 110. These are gusts. And You know, interestingly enough, I was talking about this a couple of hours ago. Remember how I was saying the Euro was predicting maybe not quite as heavy winds as the Hurricane Center was in their official prediction, and that's why these numbers were lower than the Hurricane Center's? And then all of a sudden, maybe the Hurricane Center is backing off just a little bit because maybe they're seeing some things, maybe some shear, maybe some other factors that could be coming into play. But let's not minimize the bottom line. The bottom line, a big hurricane is going to hit our area in the next 24 hours, and there's no way around that. Maybe we might deal with a 2 instead of a 4. Maybe we'll deal on the upside, too. That is still a possibility, but it's something to look forward to, at least, again, some hope. So by Monday morning, 8 o'clock, things will be tropical storm wind-wise down south. The worst of our northern counties will be winding down. Inverness will still be at 78. Daytona Beach over on the east side about 80. And that water, I think, will be an issue. There's going to be flooding. I mean, how many of us have seen people jet skiing on Bayshore, even in a non-hurricane situation, just when it floods or when we get a tropical storm? I mean, you know all that stuff's going to happen. And unfortunately, I'm afraid to say, I do think the surge might be high enough where there's going to be problems getting into some homes as well. So just another reason why, if you live in a flood zone and you've been told to evacuate and you didn't, you still have time. As crazy as it sounds, you still have time. So this is one last look at overall areas, specific areas, to give you a better idea what to expect. Now, these numbers may change a little bit by 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And again, Greg and Jason will have more on that. In fact, it looks like they're coming up with some. In fact, I think what they're doing right now, the reason you're not seeing the numbers is because they're going through a run. So let's go ahead and pass it back to Jameson and Wendy, and hopefully maybe something to hang our hats on, guys.
Listen, I'll take whatever good news you have, because since last night at 2 a.m., Dennis, all I've heard is bad news. So thank you for some good news. That's a bright spot.
We're going to go to bed very late tonight, and I know when we wake up a few hours after that, I'm going to look first thing in the morning, and hopefully those numbers go even lower as you kind of see that
and it
track
continues to move further out west away from us.
We'll take any good news at this point.
Yeah.
People around Polk County are still looking for a place to stay. Now they're headed to shelters.
Yeah, ABC Action News reporter Brenda Gonzalez is live at Chain of Lakes Elementary School right now in Winter Haven, where people continue to go right now. Brenda Lise?
Wendy, a lot of the people who are coming in right now just within the hour tell us that they're coming from the shelter over in Lake Wales that's now reached capacity. Now, that's about 15 minutes from here. That's one of 2 shelters. Another in Lakeland is also full right now. But I'm told that there's plenty of room for anyone who needs a place to stay. This one still has room. There's 500 more than 500 people here right now. But I'm told that with the 18 remaining shelters, including this one, that are open and have room, there's room for tens of thousands of people. So people have been coming here. It's a pet-friendly shelter. That's one reason they're headed this way. A lot of the people we've talked to came after they boarded up their homes, but others just don't have anywhere else to stay. We talked to a woman who says that her only place to stay right now is her car, and she, of course, did not feel safe enough to be inside her car during this hurricane. Now, for the most part, people say this will be their first hurricane. They prefer to be here with their families instead of facing potential risks at home.
This is probably a better place for us, and right now all I can think about is keeping her safe, keeping her dog safe, and helping keep her family safe.
Me and him were homeless until about a month ago, and then my dad was able to get enough room for us to move back in, and I don't want to lose our house now. You know, I mean, family's everything to me.
So there's still room in 18 of the county's 20 shelters right now. This one right here has room. People continue to come in here. If you need to know where your nearest shelter is, no matter where you're at, all you have to do is text 43362. You'll get a text telling you where your closest shelter is. And right now in Polk County, mandatory evacuations for anyone living in a mobile home or in a flood-prone area. Again, we're seeing a lot of people right now within the hour just heading in there. There's plenty of space. They're taking people here right now. Reporting live in Polk County, Brenda Gonzalez, ABC Action News.